This is quite possibly the ultimate woolly bugger. To tie it, we'll start off by heating up our hook eye in order to slide over a bead. Here I'm using fluorescent orange. Insert your bead over the hook eye, slide it to the back of the hook, and use a lighter to once again heat up the hook eye. We'll then grab our bead, pulling it in an upward motion just behind the hook eye. Further secure it by filling it with some UV resin. Fix in place with the UV light, taking your time to ensure that it's fully cured. With this complete, you should be able to bend out your hook just by pushing on the bead. We'll then grab some olive thread, here I'm using A-dot, securing it to our hook shank and snapping the excess free. Continue wrapping until you reach the bend of your hook, at which point we'll grab some marabou. Here I'm using olive. Measure it to length to be about 1 1/4 times your hook shank, and transfer your measurement to the back of the fly, grabbing your thread and using it to secure it tightly in place. Continue securing the marabou to the hook shank, folding it over, and wrapping your thread to the bead, folding your marabou back over and securing it tightly in place. This step will help secure the marabou in place while creating an even body transition, and snip the excess free. We'll then grab some crystal flash. Here I'm using olive. Snip away 3 strands and secure it to one side of your fly, folding it over and securing it tightly to the other side as well. With this complete, we'll snip it to length, leaving it a bit longer than our marabou, and grab some small wire. Here I'm using green. Secure it tightly to the head of your fly, wrapping back towards the tail. At which point, we'll grab some olive chenille, strip away the tips, and use this as a tie-in point to secure it to the back of our fly. We'll wrap our thread forward towards the bead and begin wrapping the chenille forward in close touching spirals, doing so until we reach our thread. At which point, we'll secure it tightly, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the chenille and snipping the excess free. We'll then grab some saddle hackle. Here I'm using a grizzly olive. Select one feather and secure it tightly to the head of your fly. Snip the excess free and begin wrapping it backwards towards your tail. I like to take about 2 or 3 additional wraps at the head of the fly before wrapping backwards in open spirals. Continue to do so until you reach your tail. At which point, we'll grab our green wire and use this to counter wrap our saddle hackle. This will help add durability as well as secure it in place. Continue wrapping your wire forward in open spirals until you reach your thread. At which point, we'll secure it in place by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire and helicoptering the excess free. Trim the excess feather free and brush it out to give it a nice buggy look, ensuring no fibers are trapped beneath the wire. And this is one of my favorite egg-sucking leeches that I like to call the nuclear leech. If you'd like to help support the channel and pick a few up, you can find them on my website listed in the comments below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. We're going to be tying a spring nymph that deserves a spot in your fly box. To start, we'll grab some small wire. Here I'm using green, as well as some brassy wire in chartreuse. Select a single strand of chartreuse and 2 green wires. However, as for all of my patterns, you can use whatever colors you like to best match the bugs in your rivers. Secure them to the hook shank and begin wrapping well into the bend of the hook. Once complete, reverse your thread's direction and we'll begin to build up a smooth transition to form our body. Grab your wires and begin to wrap them forward in close touching spirals, ensuring that the green remains in contact with the chartreuse, continuing to do so until we reach our thread. Once complete, we'll secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind our wire, and helicoptering the excess free. Bring your thread to the head of the fly and grab some mylar. Here I'm using pearl. Secure the mylar to the head of the fly, wrapping back towards our wire. Once complete, use your thread to build up a body that's even with your wire. leaving a small amount of room at the head of the fly. And grab some pearl UV crystal flash, selecting 4 strands and securing them to the head of the fly. Fold your strands over and secure them back towards our wire. Once complete, snip the excess free. Next, we'll fold our mylar over, secure it to the head of the fly, and snip the excess free. With this complete, whip finish to build up a small head. Snip your thread free and paint over the back, head section, and our body with some UV resin. This will add shine and durability to our pattern. And this is the Jujubatus. This particular pattern works well to imitate blue wing olives. However, it can represent a variety of insects. If you'd like to win this fly, comment #flies in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. This simple midge can help you catch more fish. To tie it, we'll start off with some black thread, secure it to the hook shank, and snap the excess free. Next, we'll grab some red crystal flash, measure it to be about the length of the hook shank, and secure it to the back of our fly. With the tail secured, we'll begin wrapping up towards the bead, snip the excess free, and grab some wire. Here I'm using small in the color rust. Insert the wire into the bead, secure tightly, and wrap towards the back of the fly. Once we reach the tail, we'll reverse directions. Wrapping our thread towards the bead. Once complete, grab your wire and begin wrapping it in open spirals towards the head of the fly. Take your time to ensure that each wrap is evenly spaced. Once you reach your bead, secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire, then helicopter the excess free. Next, we'll grab some dubbing. This is one of my new favorites. You can find it in the links below. Create a dubbing noodle and wrap it just behind the bead. And brush it out to give it a nice buggy look. And this is an Inferno midge. Makes for a great attractor pattern, it sinks quickly, and can be used year-round. If you don't tie and would like to try it, you can pick some up on my website below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This is one of the world's most used and successful fly patterns. To tie it, we'll grab some vise in black, securing it tightly to our hook shank and snapping the excess free. We will then insert some lead-free wire to help hold our bead in place, securing it tightly and helicoptering the strands free. We will then grab some silver brassy wire, insert this into our bead, and begin wrapping it well into the bend of our hook. Once complete, we will begin building up a body transition with our thread. One simple way to do this is return your thread towards the head of the fly and then start wrapping back towards your wire, stopping just before you reach where you started with your thread. Repeating this process will make a nice transition towards the head of our fly that you can make as bulky or as slim as you'd like. Once we're happy with our transition, we will grab our wire and begin wrapping it forward in open spirals towards the head of the fly. Take your time to make sure the wraps are evenly spaced. Once complete, we will secure by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind our wire and helicoptering the excess free. Grab yourself some peacock herl. I'll select 2 strands and secure this to the head of the fly, securing them by wrapping slightly back on the body and returning our thread to the bead. We will begin wrapping our peacock around the head of the fly until we reach our thread. Secure by taking thread wraps both in front of the peacock as well as behind and snipping the excess free. And this is the zebra midge. If you would like to support the channel and pick up a few, you can visit my website here to see this and all the variations of it I like to use. And if you'd like a chance to win this fly, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment below #flies. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Many believe that this highly successful fly pattern should be banned. To start this pattern, we'll grab some UV orange beads, inserting it over our hook, and use a lighter in order to adhere it to the top of the fly. Be sure to lift it in an upward motion as to not close your hook gap. Additionally, be sure to fill this with a UV resin or super glue to make sure it stays in place. We will then grab some egg yarn. Here I'm using a pale white, and secure that, taking thread wraps at the head of our fly. We'll snip it to length and pull away any loose fibers. We will then whip finish to hold everything in place, seat the knot, and snip it free. Finally, we will brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. The pattern is so simple and requires very little skill that many believe it should not be used in fly fishing. However, eggs are a natural forage and extremely productive at catching fish. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is one of the most popular flies out there, and this particular one has a secret. To tie it, we'll start off with some white thread. Secure it to our hook shank, snapping the excess free. Continue wrapping backwards until we reach the bend of our hook, and grab some white marabou. Measuring your marabou to be a bit longer than the hook shank, transfer your measurement, and tightly secure it to the back of the fly. With this complete, we'll fold over the marabou, wrap to the bead, folding the marabou back over, and securing it tightly in place. And if you want to win this fly, comment #flies in the comments below. Snip the excess free, adding a single wrap to the back of the marabou to help secure it in place. Next, we'll grab some flash. Here I'm using pearl, securing several strands to one side of our fly before folding it over and securing them to the other. Continue wrapping backwards until you reach your tail, snipping them to be a bit longer than our marabou. We'll then grab some brassy wire. Here I'm using silver. Secure it to the side of your fly, once again wrapping back towards the tail. Followed by some white staz, securing it tightly in place, once again wrapping back towards our tail, before wrapping your thread up to the bead. With this complete, we'll grab our staz and begin to wrap it forward in close touching spirals, continuing to do so until we reach our thread. At which point we'll secure it in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and snipping the excess free. We'll then grab some hackle. Here I'm using a grizzly, pulling some excess fibers free and securing it to the head of your fly, snipping the excess free, and begin to wrap it backwards, adding a few extra wraps towards the head of the fly before continuing backwards in open spirals. We'll continue to do so until we reach our tail, at which point we'll grab our wire, counter wrapping the hackle to help secure it tightly in place, trying to prevent from trapping any hackle fibers in the process, and continue to do so until you reach your bead. At which point, we'll secure the wire in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire, and helicoptering the excess free. We'll brush everything backwards and use our thread to help give it a more brush back look, before snipping our excess hackle free and grabbing some white ice dubbing. Create a dubbing noodle and begin wrapping this just in front of your hackle. And of course brush it out to help remove any trapped fibers and give it a nice, buggy look. With this complete, we'll whip finish to hold it all in place, snip our thread free, and this is a highly productive variation of the crystal woolly bugger. And this one even glows in the dark. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. If this year-round fly pattern is missing from your fly box, you're going to want to change that. We'll start this pattern off with some olive thread, snap your excess free, and continue wrapping well into the bend of the hook. At which point we can rotate the fly in our vise to make the next step a little bit easier. Grab a mallard or a wood duck flank, pull a few fibers free, and secure them to the back of the fly. Once complete, we'll continue to secure the fibers on the back side of our hook shank. Rotate the fly back to its original position and continue securing the fibers forward until we reach our hook eye. Next, we'll grab some dubbing. Here I'm using a brown hare's ear as well as a tan ice dubbing. Create a dubbing noodle and begin to wrap this around the head of your fly, building up a dubbing ball that ends roughly at the hook point. And once complete, we'll brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. Fold over your feather and secure it just behind the dubbing ball, snipping the excess free once complete, and then securing the tag ends using a whip finisher. Snip your thread free, and you can either leave the fly as is, which will look a little bit better, or make it virtually indestructible by adding a little bit of UV resin. And this is the WD-40. This is the fly that I like to use as a batis or a midge imitation, and it's always in my fly boxes. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. If you're fishing for wintertime trout, then this midge is a must-have. We'll start off with some white thread, secure it to our hook shank, snap the excess free, and grab some extra small black wire. Insert the wire into the bead and secure it tightly in place with your thread, continuing to secure it well into the hook bend. And if you'd like to win this fly, comment #flies in the comments below. We'll then grab some flat blue thread, securing it to your hook shank and wrapping back towards our wire. With this complete, we'll begin building up a transition towards the head of our fly. Doing so by wrapping up towards the hook point, doubling back on your thread till you almost reach your starting position, and returning back up to the hook point. With this complete, we'll whip finish, snip our thread free, grabbing our blue thread and beginning to wrap it forward up towards the head of our fly. With this complete, we'll whip finish, snip our thread free, swapping back out for our white thread. With this complete, we'll grab our black wire and beginning to wrap it forward in open spirals in order to add a segmented look. Doing so until we reach our thread, at which point we'll secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire and helicoptering the excess free. We'll then grab some blue ice dubbing along with a small amount of black hare's ear. Create a dubbing noodle and begin wrapping it just in front of your hook point, creating a buildup of dubbing, followed by a dubbing noodle of black hare's ear. We'll brush this one out in order to give it a buggy look. Wrap this just in front of your blue dubbing ball. Finishing with one thread wrap in front, we'll give it a brush back look. With this complete, we'll brush everything out to give it a nice, buggy look. We'll then grab a blue Sharpie, color in our thread, and whip finish to hold everything in place. Snip your thread free, and this is a blue midge that I like to place behind a tractor pattern in the winter months. Thank you for watching, and if you'd like to stock up your fly box for the winter, you can visit our website listed below. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
This is one of the world's most used and popular fly patterns. To tie it, we'll start off with some brown thread, secure it to our hook shank, and snap the excess free. Continue wrapping until you reach the bend of the hook, and grab some pheasant tail. We'll grab about 5 or 6 fibers, measure them to be roughly the length of the hook shank, and secure them to the back of the fly. Once complete, we'll continue wrapping towards the bead, further securing the pheasant tail as we go. Snip the excess free and grab some brassy wire. Here I'm using copper. Insert the wire into your bead and secure, wrapping back towards the tail. We'll bring our thread forward just past the hook point, grab some more pheasant tail and secure it to our hook shank, once again wrapping back towards the tail. With this complete, we'll begin wrapping our pheasant tail forward in close touching spirals. You can do so by just wrapping it around with your fingers. However, if your vise has a rotary function, this makes the process far easier. Once we reach our thread, we'll secure the pheasant tail in place and snip the excess free. We'll then grab our brassy wire and begin to wrap it forward, counter-wrapping our pheasant tail as we go. Doing so will help increase the durability of this pattern. Once we reach our thread, we'll secure and helicopter the excess free. Grab a few more strands of pheasant tail and secure them with the tips facing out past the bead. Generally, I measure mine to be about 1.5 bead lengths. Continue securing the pheasant tail on top of our hook, wrapping back towards the wire. Once complete, bring your thread forward and grab some peacock curl. We'll select a couple strands, secure them to the body, and wrap back towards our pheasant tail. We'll return our thread to the bead and begin wrapping our peacock curl in closed spirals towards the head of the fly. Secure by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping our excess free. We'll then take our fingers and use them to splay out our pheasant tail tips to form some legs. Once happy, we'll fold over the remaining pheasant tail fibers, secure them just behind the bead, and snip the excess free. Whip finish to hold everything in place. The pheasant tail is a classic pattern that is one of the most known and used patterns out there. It makes for a great general pattern, imitating mayflies and caddis exceptionally well. You can find this pattern on my website, but if you would like your chance to win this fly, comment #flies, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. These flies will help you catch more fish this winter. To start this pattern, we'll grab some vise thread in white and secure it to our hook shank. We will then grab some flashabou Here I'm using pearl. Secure a single strand to our hook shank and begin wrapping towards the bend of our hook. We'll continue wrapping well into the hook bend, at which point we'll reverse directions and begin building up a smooth transition towards the head of the fly. With this step complete, grab your flash spool and begin wrapping this in closed spirals towards the head of the fly. Take your time to ensure that we cover the entire thread base. Once we reach our thread, we'll secure and snip the excess free. To increase the fly's durability, as well as its shine, we'll add a small layer of UV resin. Here I'm using a thin bone dry. Once happy, secure with a UV light and grab some peacock curl. Select a single strand and secure it to the head of our fly. Once secure, we'll begin hackling our ostrich herl towards our thread, doing so in closed touching spirals. Secure by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping the excess free. Whip finish to hold everything in place. This is a simple fly that can be tied in small sizes. Additionally, its bright color allows it to be noticed. Midges are definitely a staple of the trout's diet in winter, and your fly box should have several of them. If you'd like to stock up, you can visit my website below to see all of our midges selection. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
Today, we'll be tying a nymph that's been used to win several fly fishing competitions. To tie it, you can grab a Coq de Leon feather, or I'm just using a black saddle hackle. Strip away a few feathers and secure them to the back of the fly. We want these to be about the same length as our hook shank, and snip the excess free. Next, we'll grab some pearl flashaboo, secure it to the head of our fly, wrapping back towards the tail. Complete, we'll reverse our thread's direction and begin building up a body transition towards the head of the fly. Your finished product should look something like a carrot, and it will help hold our bead in place. Once complete, we'll start wrapping our flashaboo forward in closed touching spirals, doing so until we reach our thread. Secure with your thread and snip the excess free. Whip finish to hold everything in place. Snip your thread free and paint over the body section with some UV resin. This will add shine and durability to our pattern. Fix with a UV light and steal your wife's or your girlfriend's eyeshadow and mix it up with some thin UV resin. Add a small drop to cover the bead as well as the body section and hit it with a UV light. And this is the Gasolina, a highly productive fly pattern that is likely in every competition angler's fly box. And there's a reason for that, so I would highly suggest giving this one a shot. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. We're going to be tying up one of the best variations of the band squirmy worm. We'll start with some hot pink thread, snip the excess free, securing the bead in place using some lead-free wire. Helicopter the excess free and continue wrapping to the bend of the hook, at which point we'll take a few wraps forward and grab some stretchy material. Here I'm using a rubber D-rib, however I would suggest using a stretchy dental band that I've linked in the comments. Create a loop with your material and secure it to the back of the fly. Make sure your loop's secured tightly by taking securing wraps both in front as well as behind your loop and continue towards the head of the fly. Snip one of your excess bands free, once again continuing towards the head of the fly. We'll fold our rubber material backwards, take a few securing wraps towards the head of the fly, and once again create a loop in our rubber band, using your thread to secure it lightly in place at first. This way, by pulling on the opposite end, we can shrink the loop to the size we're looking for. Once happy, secure in place with your thread, and continue wrapping towards the bend of the hook. Snip your excess free, and use your thread to smooth out the body. Finishing at the head of the fly. Hold everything in place by whip finishing, snip your thread free, and paint over everything with some UV resin to add shine and durability to our pattern. Fix in place with a UV light, and grab some spare wire. Use the wire to string it through the two loops that we just created, and open up the loops at the end using a pair of tweezers. Next, we'll grab some squirmy worm material, here I'm using pink, insert it through our loop, and begin pulling the wire to help draw the squirmy worm material through the two loops. They should be quite tight to hold it in place. Once complete, remove the wire, snip the squirmy worm material to length. And this is an improved squirmy worm, suggested by Tim from the Trout and Feather. I've linked his full video in the comments below. It's an excellent pattern that promotes a lot of movement in the water and also can be replaced if the fish chew it up. I would highly suggest giving it a try. And as always, if you'd like to win this one, comment #flies in the comments below. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. If you're looking for a dropper fly to use in the fall, look no further. To tie it, we'll start off with some olive thread, secure it to our hook shank, wrapping towards the bend of our hook. At which point, we'll grab some blue wing olive dubbing, create a dubbing noodle, and begin wrapping this forward in close touching spirals, building up a slight body transition towards the head of the fly. Continue to add or tighten the dubbing as needed. With this complete, we'll add a small strip of mylar to the top of our fly, securing it tightly just behind the head. Followed by some more dubbing. This time, we're using black. Create another dubbing noodle and begin wrapping this forward, once again in close touching spirals, towards the head of the fly. With this complete, we'll brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. And grab a partridge feather. Snip the partridge feather into a triangle, like we see here, and attach it just behind the head of the fly. We'll secure it loosely at first, so we can position it in place by sliding it forward, folding over our mylar, and once again taking a few loose securing wraps. Finish positioning the partridge feather so that the legs of our fly extend just short of our body, like so. Once happy, secure everything tightly in place and snip the excess free. Followed by some whip finishes to hold it all together. Snip your thread free and add a drop of UV resin to head of the fly to add some durability as well as some shine to our pattern. And of course, brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. And this is a blue wing olive that I like to tie in extremely small sizes behind a dry fly. It can work exceptionally well in the fall and also the spring months. If you'd like to win this one, comment #flies in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
We are going to be tying the Myers jig leech. Now for starters, I've selected a vise 12/0 in white, and we'll be using a firehole stone Euro jig hook and matching gold bead. We'll start our securing thread wraps right behind the bead head and snap the excess free. Next we'll wrap back up towards the bead of our fly. Now you can see that our bead is quite loose, and I've got a lot of questions about why I use this lead-free wire. Well, this helps secure our bead in place, so we're going to adhere that to the hook shank, wrap it down tightly and helicopter free, and now you can see that our bead is set firmly in place. We'll then grab some pink crystal flash, snip off about 3 strands, secure that to our hook shank, and wrap back well into the bend of our hook. Once complete, we'll return our thread to the bead of the fly, grab our flash and start wrapping these in tight spirals up towards the head of our fly. You want to make sure that none of the hook shank is showing. Once we reach the head of our fly, we will secure by taking thread wraps in front as well as behind our flash and snipping free. Grab some UV resin and we'll paint this over the flash to give it a more shiny look and also increase its durability. Once happy, we can set that in place using our UV light and grab a pink zonker strip. We're going to tie the head in so that the fibers face towards the back of the hook, taking thread wraps back into the zonker strip itself to give us room for the next step. We will then cut the zonker strip to length. I like to have mine be about twice as long as our hook shank. Now we will grab some ostrich hurl, strip off some of the fibers on the tips, and use that to attach it to the head of our fly. Snip the excess free, and then we'll start hackling the ostrich hurl towards the head of our fly.
Once complete, we will secure it in place by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and then you should be able to just pull the excess free. And this is one of my favorite variations for trout. They love the pink color, and the action that it provides is great for enticing finicky fish. If you liked today's video, hit that like button and make sure you hit subscribe to see more just like it. If you guys need to stock up your fly box, I have a whole fly shop that you can do so. I have some flies that are ready to ship out. And if you want some more custom work, you can go to the custom order forums and submit a form there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. This is a stonefly pattern that I like to use as an attractor, specifically for steelhead. To tie it, we'll start off with some black thread, lay down a thread base, and add some wraps of lead-free wire in order to build up some bulk and increase the pattern's weight. If you need it to sink faster, you can also tie this with a bead head. Wrap your wire in place, snip any excess free, and secure it tightly in place by creating a small thread dam behind it, as well as in front, and wrapping throughout it. With this complete, we'll wrap our thread backwards, well into the bend of the hook, and create a small buildup of thread. With this complete, we'll grab some black biots, snip a couple free, and secure them to the back of the fly. The thread dam that we just created will help splay them out in a V-shaped pattern, like so. Secure the remainder of the biots in place, and use your thread to help build up a transition leading up to your wire wraps. With this complete, we'll grab some vinyl D-rib. Here I'm using a medium in black, securing it towards the wire and wrapping back towards our biots. This will also help increase the bulk of your fly pattern. With this complete, we'll use our thread to continue creating our transition up towards the wire wraps until we're happy. You can build up as much or as little bulk as you like. Once happy, we'll wrap back down towards our biots, grabbing some black hare's ear and creating a dubbing noodle. Spinning our dubbing noodle forward in close touching spirals until we're slightly on top of our wire wraps, at which point we'll brush it out to give it a nice buggy look. Next, we'll grab our vinyl D-rib and begin to wrap it forward in close touching spirals. On each wrap, we'll grab our dubbing brush, brushing our fibers backwards in order to help trap them with the vinyl D-rib so a few of them stick through. This will help add some texture in between our vinyl D-wraps to give it a more lifelike appearance. Continue doing so until all the dubbing is covered, at which point we'll secure it tightly in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and snipping the excess free. Create another dubbing noodle with your black hare's ear, wrapping this just in front of your vinyl D-rib. Brush it out, and grab some flash. Here I'm using lateral scale and pearl that I had laying around the desk. Secure the flash to the top of the hook shank, wrapping back slightly on top of our dubbing ball, followed by some thin skin. Here I'm using a molted turkey tail. With this complete, we'll grab some blue ice dubbing along with some black hare's ear. Mix the two together to create a dubbing mix. The small amount of hare's ear will help add some different texture and character to your dubbing. Create a dubbing noodle and begin wrapping this to build up some bulk just in front of our other materials, brushing it out in a downward motion to give it a nice buggy look. We'll then fold over our thin skin, taking some thread wraps to secure it tightly in place before folding over our flash and securing it over the top. You can do these both at once. However, I have an easier time securing them properly in the position I'd like if I do one at a time. With this complete, we'll fold both of them backwards, wrapping on top of them slightly to hold them in place before our next steps. Once complete, we'll create another dubbing ball of the same blend and repeat the steps that we just took 2 more times, keeping in mind that you want to build up a transition and still leave some room at the head of the fly. And if you'd like to win this fly, comment #flies in the comments below. Once we finish our final step, we'll snip our thin skin and flash free and grab some more black biots. This time, we'll use some smaller ones located at the tip of the biot, securing them at the head of the fly, once again in a V formation, before snipping the excess free. With this complete, we'll use our thread to build up a small head of the fly just behind our hook eye, whip finishing to secure it in place, and continue adding some bulk. Snip your thread free and grab some UV resin to add some shine and durability to our pattern. I like to only add a small layer, so the character of our thin skin still shows through. Fix it in place with the UV light, and come back and add a small coat of UV resin around the head of our fly, once again fixing in place with the UV light, and brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. And this is a stonefly that I like to use as an attractor pattern, particularly in blues for steelhead. However, it works quite well in any hotspot you'd like, or in natural colors. And if you'd like to pick up a few of these with a biot variation, you can find them on my website, listed below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. If you're fishing in winter, this is a pattern you won't want to leave behind. We'll start off with some black thread, secure it to our hook shank, snapping the excess free, and inserting a wire into our bead in order to secure it in place. Helicopter the excess free, and continue wrapping into the bend of our hook shank. And if you'd like to win this fly, subscribe to the channel and comment #flies in the comments below. Next, we'll grab some black feathers to use as our tail. Here I've selected marabou for its movement. Secure it tightly to the back of the fly so the feathers splay out, and continue securing it to the hook shank back up towards the head of the fly. With this complete, we'll snip the excess free and grab some silver brassy wire. Insert the wire into the bead and secure it tightly in place, once again wrapping back towards the tail of our fly. With this complete, we'll begin to build up a body section by wrapping our thread forward almost to the head of the fly and reversing our thread's direction back towards the starting point, and continuing to do so, making it as bulky or as thin as you like until you're happy with the results. With this complete, we'll grab our brassy wire and begin to wrap it forward in open spirals, doing so until we reach our thread. At which point we'll secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire and helicoptering the excess free. Next, we'll grab a red material to use as our back, securing it tightly to the head of our fly, wrapping back slightly on top of our wire. Next, we'll grab some dubbing. Here I've made a mix of some red and black fibers. Create a dubbing noodle and begin to wrap this forward, building up some bulk for our body section, doing so until you reach the head of your fly. At which point, we'll brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. We'll then grab some crystal flash, securing the two strands tightly to the head of the fly. At which point, we'll fold our red material over, securing it tightly to the head of the fly by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind before snipping the excess free. Trim the flash to length and whip finish to hold it all together. Snip your thread free and add some UV resin over the back in order to add shine and durability to our pattern. Fix in place with a UV light and brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. And this is a pattern that I especially like to use for wintertime trout. And if you'd like to stock up your fly box, you can visit the Mainly Outdoors website listed below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.